Tonight on Bridge City News, another major drug bust in our city as police confiscate close to 500 suspected carfentanil pills. It's Game 7 between the Lethbridge Hurricanes and the Calgary Hitmen tonight. We hear from the Canes about the keys to victory. And there was a major announcement at Exhibition Park today as to who we can look forward to seeing at this summer's Whoop Up Days.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Good evening. Thanks so much for joining us. Two more drug dealers are off the streets in Lethbridge. Police arrested two people and seized close to 500 suspected carfentanil pills in a March 26th drug bust. The 4-month investigation involved officers from Alert Lethbridge, the Blood Tribe Police, Lethbridge, and Taber Police. Not only did police confiscate the pills, but also cocaine, meth, codeine pills, and just over $1,200 in cash.
The targets that were taken down on this are known in both of our communities of Blood Tribe and Lethbridge, and crime doesn't see boundaries or jurisdictions. So to have Blood Tribe Police and the Taber Police working with Alert to go after a common criminal that is causing issues in all of our respective communities, especially in the drug crisis, this is huge.
I don't want to belabor the impact fentanyl and opioids have had on our communities. However, I'm hard-pressed to think of a community in our province has been more impacted than Blood Tribe.
We couldn't do any of this without information from the public. Also, the partnerships within the policing community are vital to operations like this. The sharing of information, knowledge, and resources is key, and Blood Tribe Police Service is very proud to be a part of this.
32-year-old Corey Amiot and 26-year-old Keisha Tallow were charged with various drug-related offenses, including supplying drugs to the Blood Tribe Reserve. Both were released on bail. It's Game 7 tonight between the Lethbridge Hurricanes and the Calgary Hitmen. A winner-takes-all scenario at Nicholas Sharon Arena. The first-round WHL playoff matchup has been a score-what-I-want-to affair, with 24 goals being scored in the last couple of games. The Canes winning Game 6 in Calgary by a 7-6 overtime score. The team knows that they have to tighten up a little defensively.
We got to go and play our game, but we know it's going to be rocking in here. It's a smaller rink it'll be filled obviously. And, for us, we just got to go play, keep our emotions under control, and do things the right way.
You know, you can kind of see by experience there a little bit. Last game, most people probably thought we were done there, and you know, we've done that many times where we score a late one and come back and win it all. So, you know, yeah, we got a lot of experience, and you know, we're calm and we're excited for tonight.
Doors open at Nicholas Sharon Arena at 6 and the game is at 7 p.m. Parking will be limited. Free parking and a shuttle service will be available at the University of Lethbridge. Nearly a year after donating 6 of his organs following the Humboldt Broncos bus tragedy, Logan Boulet's legacy lives on. A pair of resolutions were passed by City Council on Monday that were inspired by Boulet. First, to proclaim April 7th, 2019 as Green Shirt Day in the city. The second being a name change that will see Adams Park Ice Center become the Logan Boulet Arena.
Because his selfless act of signing his donor card on his 21st birthday, only 4 weeks before the Grinch.
It's the right thing to do. There's resolutions for a reason, but honestly, I believe that with it being back in 1999, the council can change that, and I think for something like this, these changes are extremely important. This movement has been unbelievable. The Logan Boulet effect has changed so many lives and will continue to do so. So for that reason, I thought it was extremely important.
We thought that it would be appropriate to rename the arena at Adams Park in honor of Logan Boulet. So Mayor Adams was a mayor back in 1910, and the park was subsequently named after him. The arena was actually built in the 1960s and by default became Adams Arena. But what we want to do is rename it, change history, if you like. History starts today. And when we have a significant citizen like Logan Boulet, who's inspired so many, it's appropriate to name one of our city infrastructure projects after him.
A month before his death, Boulet registered as an organ donor, helping to save the lives of 6 people. His decision has sparked a movement called the Logan Boulet Effect, which has seen thousands of people follow his lead and sign up to become organ donors themselves. Whoop Up Days is just around the corner. Today, a big announcement took place at Exhibition Park, including the names of his summer's performers. Corb Lund, Sam Roberts' band, Walk Off the Earth, Arkells, and Little John are a few of the big names announced. The 122-year-old Exhibition Park wanted to keep the festival as diverse as possible in order to grow the event.
We didn't want to be strictly a country show or strictly a rock show. We really wanted to be able to attract multiple audiences, multiple genres, bring people either to Whoop Up Days for the first time or people who haven't been in many years back to Whoop Up Days. And the opportunity for entertainment in this community is fantastic, and we really wanted to build on that and create even more exciting entertainment portfolio here in the city. I spoke with a lot of local promoters and other people when we put this lineup together, and it was about building on Lethbridge as an entertainment city.
The 3 to 5 year vision of Stage Act Music Festival is to grow it into something significant and not only service Lethbridge, not only service the region, but also service the province of Alberta.
Tickets for Whoop Up Days 2019 and the Music Festival go on sale April the 5th. Lethbridge College has added 2 new programs. Some are saying the new additions will be some of the best in Canada. Ainsley O'Reilly explains how virtual reality is the future of education and why the new programs are attracting international attention.
Lethbridge College has introduced 2 new programs, Architectural Animation Technology and Virtual and Augmentation Reality. The VR industry is constantly growing, and the college expects to produce the world's best in this field.
We will see students be able to, like I said before, shape the future of this industry. And I think it's going to be really important for us to be able to create these new students that will help in education, in training, and also in entertainment.
Although the programs aren't identical, students will be taking a lot of the same classes, with architectural animation specializing in those specific practices.
In our interior design program, we focus more on the design. So they'll do floor plans, reflected ceiling plans, power and communication plans for residential space, restaurants, hotels, and corporate offices. So that's not something in terms of the design building code that they'll learn in AAT.
Both programs have already received international attention, and the architectural program will be the first of its kind.
We're actually setting up a studio here with Sherry where the college students will be able to wear the headsets, experience the space, and build the technology that allows people to experience architecture before it's built. How awesome is that?
If you want to go to school for virtual reality, Lethbridge will be the only place in Western Canada where you can do so. For Bridge City News, I'm Ainsley O'Reilly.
New changes are expected to take place at the Lethbridge Airport. City Council passed a resolution on Monday to assume the operations of the airport until a commission or airport authority can be finalized.
Yesterday at Lethbridge City Council, we decided that the airport would become a department of the city temporarily. So within the budget cycle, within the 4-year budget cycle, we would expect that we would transition to a commission or an airport authority. In the meantime, we want to focus on getting grants from the provincial and the federal government to support the airport. So that's going to take a little longer than we anticipated with the elections scheduled for this year, but we do want to work with both levels of government.
Mayor Chris Spearman says the increased passenger traffic at the airport is an important economic indicator for the city and its residents. The plan is expected to be presented to City Council at a future date. The Lethbridge East All Candidates Forum goes from 6:30 to 9:30 p.m. tonight at the main branch of the Lethbridge Public Library. It's a chance for you to come out and ask candidates where they stand on various issues leading up to the April 16th provincial election. On Thursday, the Lethbridge West candidates will also be taking part in the forum. Watch for Bridge City News at both events tonight and again on Thursday night at the main branch of the Lethbridge Public Library. Premier Rachel Notley has gone on record saying the NDP will continue to focus on health care, education, and trying to get the budget balanced by the year 2023-2024. UCP leader Jason Kenney was in our studio recently, and he talks about what it will take to win on April 16th.
We don't take anything for granted, obviously. We're going to have to earn every vote, stay humble, and earn it. But you know, the reality is the majority of Albertans believe that you cannot redistribute wealth without creating it in the first place. They understand that you cannot tax and borrow your way to prosperity. They understand that this carbon tax is not only the biggest tax increase in Alberta history, but also the biggest lie in Alberta political history. The NDP didn't mention it in the last campaign. They understand this recession has been longer and deeper than it had to be because of anti-growth policies of the NDP, that tens of billions of dollars of investment has fled the province. 200,000 Albertans are out of work. We've gone from brain gain to brain drain. People get that. So listen, we're going to stay humble and work hard, but I'm confident if we do that we will make this NDP government one and done, defeated in the next election.
The Alberta Party wants to go north to Alaska. The party says it would build a rail and pipeline corridor to the 49th state to give Alberta long-term coastal access. Leader Stephen Mandel says BC would be bypassed as Alberta pursues a northern corridor. He says efforts to ship oil east, west, and south have been blocked, so it's time to go in a different direction. Alberta's Liberals are promising to boost funding for mental health and addictions treatment by 50% if they form government on April 16th. The party says it would spend $150 million with another $450 million to come over 4 years. Leader David Kahn says thousands of Albertans do not have adequate mental health care and it's damaging the economy, increasing crime, and driving up health costs. He also says his government would declare a public health state of emergency over the opioid crisis. Meanwhile, in Ottawa, a day before a crucial Liberal caucus meeting where Jody Wilson-Raybould could be shown the door, members of the Trudeau cabinet are focusing on a recent phone conversation with Privy Council Clerk Michael Wernick. Liberal MPs are not happy that the former Attorney General, Jody Wilson-Raybould, recorded that conversation.
I think that when it comes to the fact that you're tape recording the clerk of the Privy Council without him knowing, I think this is something that is fundamentally wrong.
You know, I'm 48 years old, I'm a lawyer, I've conducted ethics investigation for a good part of my life, and I've never recorded anyone, nor did I did notes to file. So when you do that, I think Canadians can ask legitimate questions about what are the motives for that, and certainly that's something we're going to have to look into.
What do you think? Federal NDP leader Jagmeet Singh unveiled his party's pharmacare plan. He says it will cost the federal government about $10 billion more than what provinces already pay. He says in the end, it's worth it.
We hear that people are making difficult decisions every day. People are making tough choices between paying for essentials like home heating, like the groceries, and medication. We know seniors who are cutting their pills in half, literally cutting their pills in half to extend their prescription because they cannot afford the medication. Millions of Canadians cannot afford the medication they need. Now, to solve this problem that people are faced with, the Liberal government is proposing to bring in a US-style patchwork system that's only going to increase premiums that families pay. It's going to make it more difficult. It's going to put pharmaceutical companies and insurance companies in the driver's seat and allow them to drive up the cost of medication. Medication costs which continue to rise unsustainably. So that's not going to help people. That's not going to work. That's not going to save families the money that they need to save. So what we're proposing today, what we're calling on today, is a truly universal, comprehensive, publicly delivered medication for all program.
The president of Israel was in Ottawa meeting with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and laying a wreath at the all-new National Holocaust Monument. Reuven Rivlin's visit marks 70 years of diplomatic relations between Canada and Israel. He says he hopes to strengthen links in science, education, and security.
We are working together to combat hatred and anti-Semitism around the world, including through the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance and the global campaign to stop anti-Semitism.
Prime Minister Trudeau, I want to thank you not only for your friendship, but for your moral leadership. The mark of a true leader is his willingness to take a clear moral stand. Your moral stance against anti-Semitism in all its forms, the strong support for Israel in the United Nations, and you are doing it along with your foreign affairs minister.
It is tax season, a time when many of us talk about investments, including what we contributed to our RRSPs. Nathan Giesbrecht is a financial advisor from Red Deer, and he says no matter what your age, it's never too late to contribute to your RRSP.
The first thing is, I always say it's never too late. You could be 64 and I would say it's still never too late. Yeah, because an RSP is still one of the greatest tax advantages that the average Canadian has to them. So adding money to an RSP creates an instant tax deduction for you, the client. There's income tax that now you don't have to pay both federally and provincially by purchasing an RSP, and then it allows you to put money aside for a rainy day or retirement, if you will.
Catch my full interview with Nathan discussing some of the best places where you should invest your money. That's coming up after business news. The wildfire season has begun once again in our province, but it has also hit BC a little bit earlier this year. 2 blazes are currently burning in the Shuswap region on the north side of the Thompson River. Fire officials say it's about 250 hectares in size. The East Kootenay area is also reporting new wildfires. The BC Wildfire Service says a 1-hectare fire near Cranbrook was man-made. Fire officials are asking landowners to keep a lookout for suspicious activities, such as unknown vehicles parked on gravel roads. Any fires in Alberta forested areas are now requiring permits, which are available at any agriculture and forestry office. There's been a lot of controversy with the Trump administration cutting aid to Central American countries. Our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari says the biggest reason is simply because the money is not going where it's needed the most.
So if it were true that the aid that we provided these nations would actually go to improve conditions on the ground there, then we wouldn't have the current situations that we have. So, by cutting aid, that is the diplomatic response that Donald Trump can have to say, control your populations. We're not going to have this kind of, social or political march to our southern border and still provide you with that aid money.
Lisa will have more on the crisis in Latin America and details of how a comedian could become the next president of the Ukraine. That's coming up in the second half of our show. Alexa and Siri may tell jokes mined from a database, but they just don't get them. As we hear in this next report, understanding humor may be one of the last things that separates humans from machines.
Hey Scott, so you've been doing comedy around town, or what's your deal?
Comedian Curtis Matthews has been teaching stand-up comedy for 2 decades. A big part of his job is getting students out of their normal way of thinking.
People are learning how to think funny as opposed to being logical. All those things that may have helped a person get into college and succeed in business aren't necessarily helpful when it comes to comedy, because we tend to laugh at the wrong answer or the weird answer.
Turns out there's a similar challenge for computer scientists and linguists when it comes to programming robots.
Okay, Siri, tell me a joke.
Does anyone want to buy my old vacuum cleaner? It's just gathering dust.
Siri may know how to tell a joke, but understanding humor is still a tall order. Even as artificial intelligence gets better and computers take on more complicated tasks.
Humor is very subtle. It requires a lot of understanding of human social rules and context. Even when we travel to a different country, being able to get into the mind of the culture we're in is pretty difficult.
Have you heard the one about the young monk?
Oregon State University's Heather Knight created the comedy-performing robot Ginger to help her design machines that better interact with humans.
I think that people are much better at figuring out what's funny than robots. So one of the things that I'm trying to do is get lots of different audiences in the same room for a show, like a sequence of shows, and actually see what people find as funny.
Post this on Twitter.
While humor and AI is a growing field for academics, comedians like Matthews aren't too worried about being out of work.
Tell me a joke.
Why did the Scarecrow keep getting promoted? Because he was outstanding in his field.
I'm not worried that a robot will take my job as a comedian, because my comedy is as personal as my thumbprint. You could get AI to repeat the jokes that I write or the things that I feel, but you could never get AI to become me. You just can't. So, because of my experience as a human being.
An experience a robot will never have or appreciate.
That must have been hilarious.
Terry Che, Associated Press, San Francisco.
God love technology. Lots of sunshine again today and mild. The warming trend will continue. I'll have complete weather details coming up in just a moment. Another beautiful day in Lethbridge with not a lot of wind. Mainly clear tonight with a low near -2. Mainly sunny again tomorrow with a high expected near 15. Sunshine for Thursday with a high of 17. Even warmer on Friday with a high near 18 in the forecast. A few clouds return on Saturday, but still nice and warm with a high of 16 degrees. Mainly sunny and 17 on Sunday. Sunshine and 18 is expected on Monday. Checking the almanac, the average high for this time of year is 10 and an average low of -3. The highest temperature on this date was recorded in 1992 at 25 degrees, and the record low was -22 in 1954. Sunrise was at 7:07, sunset at 8:03. Let's see how tomorrow's shaping up across the country. Showers and 15 is expected in Victoria, rain and 14 for Vancouver. Calgary will have just a few clouds and 13. Mainly sunny and 11 for Edmonton. Partly cloudy and 8 is on tap for Regina on Wednesday. Mainly sunny and 6 for Saskatoon. Winnipeg will have lots of sunshine, but only hit a high of 0. A mixture of sun and cloud and 7 for Toronto tomorrow. Expect rain mixed with snow and 4 degrees for Ottawa. A few showers and 6 in Montreal. Over in the Maritimes, Fredericton, New Brunswick will have snow showers and +2. Halifax, Nova Scotia has a rainfall warning in place and a high near 7. Charlottetown, PEI should also receive rain mixed with snow tomorrow and a high of 5. In St. John's, Newfoundland, expect some sun mixed with cloud and a high near 8 degrees tomorrow. Canada's Agriculture Minister says she sent a letter to her Chinese counterpart requesting to send a delegation to the country to discuss China's decision to block Canadian canola. Marie-Claude Bebeau said the group would be led by the president of the Food Inspection Agency, along with a team of plant health experts. Bebeau says it's possible that Ottawa will increase cash advances to canola farmers affected by China's decision. International Trade Minister Jim Carr says Canadian authorities have found no problems with any of the canola shipments. He says it's time for China to show some evidence. Air Canada says it will revise its schedule through the end of June after being forced to pull its Boeing 737 MAX aircraft out of service. It says it expects to cover 98% of previously planned flying for May through several measures, including schedule changes, temporary route suspensions, and extending the leases for aircraft that were scheduled to exit the fleet. Canada was one of many countries which ground the Boeing 737 MAX aircraft following the Ethiopian's airline crash on March 10th. It was the second crash of one of the planes in less than 5 months. Incorrect billing charges and misleading contracts remain the top complaints of consumers when it comes to phone, internet, and TV services. In its latest report, the Commission for Complaints for Telecom TV Services says 16.5% of issues were with billing mistakes. The top irritant, however, were misleading contract terms. The Commission says just over 37% of the complaints it handled were about cell phone services, close to 30% were related to internet service, and just over 18% for TV. Gibson Energy says it will pocket around $100 million from the sale of its trucking arm. The Calgary-based company says Trimac Transportation has agreed to pay about $70 million for the trucking assets and $30 million for property in Edmonton containing a field office and shop. Gibson sends barrels of crude through its Hardisty terminal in central Alberta. It says it has now completed all of the non-core asset sales as part of the strategy to focus on its Alberta storage and handling assets. Now, here's a look at today's markets. Recapping one of our top stories this hour, the Lethbridge East All Candidates Forum goes from 6:30 to 9:30 p.m. tonight at the main branch of the Lethbridge Public Library. It's a chance for you to come out and ask candidates where they stand on certain issues leading up to the April 16th provincial election. On Thursday, the Lethbridge West candidates will also be taking part in the forum. Watch for Bridge City News at both events at the Lethbridge Public Library. It appears as though a comedian may become the new president of the Ukraine. No joke, our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari has details next. But first, here's a look at what's happening in and around your community.
Here's your Bridge City News community calendar. Misty Creek Dog Rescue is holding an adopt-a-thon on Saturday, April 6th from 12 to 3 p.m. Come to Homes Alive South and meet some of the friendliest dogs and puppies that are available for adoption. For more information, visit mistycreekdogrescue.com. On Saturday, April 7th, the City of Lethbridge is celebrating Green Shirt Day in honor of Logan Boulay. Logan Boulay was one of 16 people killed when the Broncos team bus collided with a semi-truck. To honor Logan's memory and the decision to save lives through organ donation, the Boulay family is launching Green Shirt Day in conjunction with the Canadian Transplant Association and Canadian Blood Services. To celebrate this day, come to the ATB Centre for a free family skate on April 7th from 4:15 to 6 p.m. For more information, visit Green Shirt Day's Facebook page. Looking to sell some extra items after decluttering your home? Come and sell your old treasures at the Windy City Bazaar Flea Market and Yard Sale on Saturday, April 13th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Royal Canadian Legion in Lethbridge. This is also open to small home-based businesses looking to sell and market their products. For vendor inquiries, email lethbridgewindycitybazaar@gmail.com. And for more information, check it out on Facebook, Windy City Bazaar Flea Market and Yard Sale. And that's your Bridge City News Community Calendar.
The White House is doubling down on the threat to close the U.S.-Mexico border. Now, that's according to the Washington Post. To tell us more is our foreign affairs expert, Lisa Daftari. Lisa, the Trump administration says they'll do everything for border security.
Right, and that sounds pretty logical in most cases, except for the current situation that Donald Trump finds himself in, fighting internally more than externally to win this battle over the border. Meanwhile, as this goes on, new caravans forming throughout Latin America to march right up to the United States, as others, thousands, gather on border cities in Mexico and just next to, I should say, very, very populous cities in Texas, New Mexico, etc. So this is a national security issue for Trump, and he will, double down on what he believes is of utmost importance to keep the citizens here in the United States safe.
U.S. President Trump says he also plans to cut U.S. aid to 3 Central American countries in a fight over U.S.-bound migrants, and the Democrats, they're not happy about it.
No, definitely not happy about it. But there's a misunderstanding here. The reason why the Democrats aren't happy about it because they think this is it's counterproductive for our foreign policy with these South American nations. Now, meaning that there would be a decrease in the number of migrants and there would be a decrease in poverty. And we wouldn't have this migrant crisis if we were able to give aid to these countries. So by cutting aid, there will be more migrants. Now, that argument takes for granted an assumption that the aid that we give to these countries fills the pockets of the lower socioeconomic branch, meaning it goes to humanitarian aid and it goes to fight poverty. And guess what? It never does. So it goes to fill the pockets of the government. And we could see a great case and example of that in Venezuela right now. So if it were true that the aid that we provided these nations would actually go to improve conditions on the ground there, then we wouldn't have the current situations that we have. So, by cutting aid, that is the diplomatic response that Donald Trump can have to say, control your populations. We're not going to have this kind of, social or political march to our southern border and still provide you with that aid money.
U.S. immigration is closing a holding area under the El Paso Bridge. Mexico is handing out some humanitarian visas as thousands of caravan migrants continue to gather. Tell me more about that.
Right, very different ways of dealing with this, and there have been both, really, the humanitarian, or I should say the more assuaging of the situation by giving out a very, very limited number of visas, which is what Mexico plans to do in this one contained area. They're starting to do that from today, and they will prioritize women, children, and the elderly over the age of 65, meaning those who are truly here for the sake of just being here, not here just to work or present some sort of national security danger, although that definition could be very much argued. Now, in El Paso, we have, if you look at the footage, we have a lot of that here in Southern California as well, where they create these areas where they basically take over an entire area, whether it's through tents in this one specific bridge in El Paso. They basically wired off an entire area where there are hundreds of individuals. Obviously, that's not sanitary. Obviously, that's not just a decent health issue. So they're going to close that area off and hopefully have them not gather in these areas or create these pockets that could create some sort of health hazard, or where children and women are raped and there is a security hazard. So, of course, this is across the board a very large national security and other security for themselves issue for the United States.
Now let's shift our attention and our focus to Venezuela. Opposition leader Juan Guaido awaits army support. Maduro, meanwhile, has announced a plan to ration electricity amid blackouts.
Yes, not the compassionate, kind-hearted leader. He never was. Now you have Venezuelans suffering under these blackouts, and really life has become so even more difficult than it has been for years. And now he will ration electricity and ration everything else, as we've seen with the blockage of humanitarian aid and food supplies, et cetera, and medicine. And Guaido sits on the sides because he is basically at this tipping point where if he gets help, he can be pushed through. He has the support of the people, but he needs that external support. And he believes that will only come through military aid, external military aid. On the other hand, Maduro has said that Guaido is forbidden from serving for years to come. He has arrested his right-hand man. And, obviously there is no way forward for Guaido without this help from external sources. So we know that the countries that surround Venezuela are very much for Guaido. They're very much for a regime change in Venezuela. And of course, the United States, who has pushed very much for someone like Guaido to take over and to have the opposition take over Venezuela.
Meanwhile, in the Middle East, Arab leaders are seeking a UN Security Council resolution on Golan. The Saudi king rejects the Trump measure on Golan Heights. Tell me more about that.
Yes, this is a bit surprising, only because of the Saudi position has been very pro-United States and has been actually very pro-Israel, not for the sake of being pro-Israel, but for curbing the growing influence of Shiite Islam in the region. What do I mean by that? Well, Israel has been busy fighting off Syria, and because of that, fighting off the Iranian regime. And we have seen through this alliance of sorts that the closening of other Arab nations to Israel only because they want to also curb Iran's influence in the region. Now, after the Khashoggi incident, we saw a warming of ties between Saudi Arabia and the United States in certain cases, just to reinforce and almost double down on the reasons why we do have good relations with the Saudis. Now, for them to go against what the U.S. has stated to formally recognize the Golan Heights, again, this is nothing more than to say the sky is blue. The Golan Heights have been a part of Israel. They won it fair and square in a war that was instigated by its neighbors. They won it from Syria. And let's just be frank here. Where is the Golan going to go back to? It is inhabited by Israelis. Is it going to go back to Syria? Is it going to go back to Bashar al-Assad, who gasses his people? So for those who are contesting this, is this just a strike against Israel because the political climate currently calls for it? Or do they truly believe that Syria should be the one who is, who gets this land? Very interesting times. And to see this anti-Trump sentiment leak into Middle Eastern politics is very interesting because it doesn't behoove the Saudis to now turn on the Israelis, even for such a small issue.
Lisa, there's been some recent violence in Gaza, as well as a rocket was fired toward Israel after the Gaza crossings opened.
Yes, so a lot of different situations, a lot of layers here in Gaza. So first, there is obviously the ongoing fight led by their leadership, Hamas, against Israel. So they began to lodge missiles into different civilian areas in Israel, including areas of Tel Aviv, which are incredibly populated. It's a very, very, very busy city like New York City. And every so often we see this happen. And here we go again, right? But there was a ceasefire that was brokered. Egypt was working on that for a while, and that ceasefire was broken and started again and broken and started again. But in the midst of all of this, you saw protests by Gazans against Hamas, so against their own leadership that began, and Hamas began to crack down on those protests as well. So you have a lot of chaos going on in Gaza. The people, of course, are disheartened. They have no future. They have nothing to live for. And you look at the studies, the Palestinians or the Arabs living inside Israeli territory do so much better. They work, they go to school, they live normal lives, whereas the Palestinians are exploited. They're exploited to live a life of wanting terror, wanting death, teaching their 3-year-olds nursery rhymes about killing Israelis. That's not a life. So, with the awakening of Gazans against their own leadership, this could potentially be a first step towards them realizing what their true issues are. And that's not the Israelis, but perhaps their own leadership, which is a terror organization.
Brazil is opening a diplomatic office in Jerusalem as Bolsonaro visits Israel. What's the big benefit for Brazil?
Well, Brazil it's actually very funny because now we see a new leadership in Brazil. They think this is a great new opportunity for them to have new business ties, new technological advances, all the wonderful things that countries who do have good relationships with Israel and don't chant this BDS garbage benefit from. Everything from cell phone technology to ultrasound technology to surgical technology and cancer medication, and across the board, Israelis are ahead of the curve. So Brazil is very much interested in getting involved in all that economic advantage, and for the most part, they echo a lot of the sentiments of the West and the United States in particular. Bolsonaro is a friend of Israel's. He says it's a sovereign nation, and why shouldn't we support Israel? And because of that, he made a statement months ago that he would move the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, and he's doing just that.
Now, here's something you don't hear about every day. A comedian is leading in the Ukrainian presidential election. Now, what would a comic president mean? How many Putin jokes does he have in his arsenal, you know?
Right. This goes back to what we've had here in the United States already, whether it was Schwarzenegger or Reagan or even Trump, you can argue, who's a reality TV star who became president. So this phenomenon of electing not the incumbent, who is actually trailing by many points in this case, but exponentially, I should say, but a 41-year-old sitcom star, and the Ukrainians want to take their chances and pick someone who is outside the beltway, as we say here in the United States, someone who's outside of traditional politics and could perhaps lead them to a better life and a better future. So interesting times.
And like you said, I mean, Trump wasn't a professional politician. Americans wanted somebody different, so maybe it's the same thing happening in the Ukraine right now. The Afghan vice president survived an assassination attempt. Lisa, tell me more about that.
Yeah, more and more turmoil in Afghanistan. This was obviously orchestrated by the Taliban. It was a failed attempt, although his guard did die in the shootout. Unfortunate because, with the Taliban, what the West perceives as 2 steps forward really ends up being 3 steps backwards. And whether it's a suicide bombing, which you and I talk about weekly, killing dozens and dozens of civilians, or something like this, which is, maybe they failed this time, but they will be successful next time. The fact that they are still looking to cause this kind of fracturing within Afghan society and political life is very telling of where the Taliban stand. And an assassination attempt is no joke. This is a wake-up call. It's a wake-up call to the West. Who are we trying to negotiate with, and what does the future of Afghanistan look like? Past, present, future, there's been turmoil, but what is the solution to all of this? And it's a very unfortunate story, but fortunately for this VP, he survived.
North Korea claims a raid on the Madrid embassy was a grave terrorist attack. North Korea calls for a probe into the terror attack in Spain.
And this kind of was a funny story in the sense that what's the connection here, right? What's the connection between terrorism, Spain, and North Korea? This just looks like, the North Koreans are calling foul play. They think this was a terror attack. Plain and simple. That's why they're asking for a probe. They're looking more into this. They look very embarrassed, which is interesting because since when were the North Koreans ever embarrassed about anything happening on the global stage? But more than anything else, what does this mean about North Korean support or against North Korea all around the world? So who was this? What was their motive? Doesn't really fit the exact picture of what we have with North Korea or China or any of the countries that either support North Korea or are against North Korea or have beef with China or are for China. Again, fitting this into the equation of countries who are right now at odds or rogue I should say, and don't have a good relationship with the West. So this should be interesting, but it looks like North Korea is very much interested in the probe and to see what this uncovers.
Our foreign affairs expert, Lisa Daftari, joining me once again from Los Angeles. Thanks so much, Lisa.
My pleasure.
Tax season is upon us once again, so what can we do to make the most out of things? Joining me now in studio is Nathan Giesbrecht, a senior financial advisor based out of Red Deer with Investors Group. Welcome back to Bridge City News.
Thank you.
So Nathan, it's tax season. Some of the new tax rules are out. What should we really be aware of, especially federally?
Yeah, so there's been some new rules come out this past year. Some of the bigger ones are some new income tax brackets. So the steps are a little smaller now. As your income goes up, they're going to tax you a little bit more going forward. So that's one big one. Something else that I think is a benefit is a few years ago they implemented inflationary increases. So meaning, you might have heard of cases where a client had earning a certain amount of income, got a pay raise, and now bumped into another tax bracket.
Right.
And so
like all this money coming off my check now. Oh,
yeah,
no, right?
And it was just due to a slight pay increase. Well, now every year the government is saying, hey, we want to eliminate those inflationary increases and moving you into another tax bracket. So that's actually a very positive thing that won't impact you the same way.
So who's really going to benefit from the new rules then? Families, individuals? How about seniors?
Yeah, there's some new credits that are out there. Families are they've lost some family credits, but lower income families definitely won with some of these new tax laws. And so you know, families earning less than $50,000 a year will definitely see some added tax benefits in relief.
It's RSP season as well. Time to load up, right? Stock up on RSPs. When is the deadline?
The deadline is the same as every year. It's 60 days after the new calendar year rolls in. So March 1st this year will be the big deadline.
How much can we actually contribute? Like, what's the maximum amount?
26,000 and change is the amount you can contribute, and it's essentially based on your annual earnings. So if you are an individual that's earning $100,000 a year, let's say, in income, you're allowed to do 18,000 or 18% of earned income. So you need to be making, you know, north of about $150,000 a year before you're getting into those maximums.
Some companies actually offer, I guess, what's called free money, where you can maybe donate or take off 3% of your check each month, and the company will match it 100%.
Yeah.
So that's a really good opportunity. But some people I talk to, they say, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to put money into RSPs. But I said, but the company's going to match it. You get some free cash here.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on that?
I am like you. I think you should take free advantage of this opportunity, whether it be 1% matching, 2%, 6%, whatever the maximum is. I think you want to take full advantage of it. Now, the challenge that some people have is, in order to get the free money, you have to put in your half. And so you need to budget your cash flow every month to do that. But out of sight, out of mind is kind of my thoughts. So if you can have it come right off your paycheck, you'll forget that you're even doing it, and ultimately you're getting matching. So it is a great opportunity.
You know, that's almost like when you pay a mortgage, the principal, interest, and tax.
Right.
You know, have the bank collect the tax. You don't have to worry about it. Get stuck with this big bill at the end of June.
Yes.
That you owe $3,500 to $4,000 in tax, whatever it is.
Yes.
And it's a big shock to the system, right?
Right. Yeah. And so this is a very similar kind of approach, with the exception of now they're adding money to your account. I think it's also important that you know where the money is going. So, you know, the institution that you're working with will give you options, so you can pick and choose from one of a number of different options. I would really suggest, based on your age and your risk tolerance, you want to be looking at, you know, moving money into equities. So what do I mean here by this? So the Bank of Canada has consistently tried to keep inflation at or near 2%. Mm-hmm. So to create wealth or wealth creation, your money needs to be growing north of 2%. So if you're putting all your money into a T-bill account that's earning you 0.5%, you're not creating any wealth. You're actually, you know, losing capital or losing purchasing power due to inflation. So you want to think about, okay, am I under the age of 50 and I have time to handle a little bit of risk in the marketplace? Look at adding equities to your portfolio. You know, if you're within 5 years of retirement, you may want to have more fixed income in that portfolio, but definitely take a look at the options that are available to you.
So what do you say to a client then, Nathan, who's maybe north of 50, maybe 52, 53 years old, and they say to themselves, it's too late for me to start saving up. Why would I put money into an RSP? I'm going to play the real estate market, or I'll put my money in precious metals somewhere else.
Well, so the first thing is, I always say it's never too late. You could be 64, and I would say it's still never too late.
Oh.
Yeah, because an RSP is still one of the greatest tax advantages that the average Canadian has to them. So adding money to an RSP creates an instant tax deduction for you, the client. There's income tax that now you don't have to pay both federally and provincially by purchasing an RSP, and then it allows you to put money aside for a rainy day or retirement, if you will. In terms of what kind of commodity you want to own, whether it be real estate or gold or precious metals or whatever it is, I think you really want to make sure that you have what's known as a diversified portfolio. So you want to make sure that not all of your money is in one commodity.
Like real estate.
Like real estate, and so there was a time in the real estate world where you couldn't go wrong. You could purchase anything and it went up in value. But today we're seeing a normal market cycle where economies go up and down, and real estate is a commodity that can go down in value. And so imagine having all of your eggs in that real estate basket and you're about to retire. You might not be happy right now. The other thing that I ask clients to consider is, how do you convert that commodity, whatever it is, into income or to cash? So for example, if you have all your eggs in gold right now, gold is a commodity.
Golden egg.
There you go.
Yeah.
And gold, it doesn't pay you income. It doesn't have a yield. It doesn't provide you a monthly income. You're buying a brick of gold and you hope it goes up in value.
Right.
So again, you need to look at cash flow, you need to look at liquidity, you need to understand the different risks involved when it comes to purchasing these different commodities, and then find the one that's right for you.
How about commercial real estate? What are your thoughts on that?
Again, commercial real estate can be an incredible investment. On the other hand, there's some risks involved. For example, a lot of clients, when they're looking at residential real estate versus commercial real estate, they might assume they're the same. But how are they valued? And typically, commercial real estate, if you're buying a big commercial building, the new owner, the purchaser of this property, is going to be looking at earnings or profit. So how much profit can I generate from this $10 million investment? And if I can't generate a lot of income or profit, it's worth less. Whereas the real estate world that maybe most Canadians are familiar with is, they're buying a residential home, they hope to put a renter in there, and that value of that home goes up and down with the rest of the real estate, residential real estate market. So they're priced very differently and they provide income very differently. So again, it's something that you need to understand if you're getting into that world.
Where should Southern Albertans, or even Canadians, a lot of our viewers watching from coast to coast to coast, invest their money right now? What's really hot?
Yeah.
Is it real estate? Is it artificial intelligence, autonomous vehicles, electric vehicles, green energy? What are your thoughts?
Well, so if you're an average Canadian that really just doesn't understand the investment world and don't know where to put your money, the first thing I would recommend is sit down with a professional.
A broker?
Yeah, sit down with a broker, an advisor, a professional that can help you with this, in all of this world. Find out if they have any credentials, how much experience do they have, find out a bit about their company, what's their product shelf, and then ultimately what they want to do is they want to get a snapshot of, what do you look like today financially? So let's take a look at your cash flow, let's look at your assets, your liabilities. Do you have any sort of income and asset protection? Do you have benefits at work? These are all the things that they're going to want to look at. So that's where you are today. Then from there, the most important thing in my opinion is, where are you trying to go? What are your goals? What are you trying to achieve? When do you want to retire? How much income do you want at retirement? What kind of risks are you willing to take? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then their job is to actually build you programs to get you there.
That portfolio, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And every portfolio is unique. And it should be unique. And often I would say, look, if you're a very hands-off investor, get a professional to help you. I'm the type of person that likes to think I could build a house, but I probably couldn't, So I'm going to hire a professional to do that for me, because I don't even know the pitfalls that I could be jumping into trying to do it on my own. And I think when it comes to the world of money, often people think, well, I can do this on my own, but often, you know, I'd say, are you investing your money with your heart or your head?
Mm-hmm.
You know, do you have a lot of emotional connection to this money? And of course we do.
You know, I'm glad you asked me that, because some people are considering investing in medicinal marijuana.
Sure.
You know, it's very hot right now, a hot commodity, but other people, you know, spiritually, or they have a struggle with that, being associated with cannabis at all, even canna oil or whatever.
Sure.
So what do you say to somebody like that? You say, it's very hot right now, that's just where you want to put your money, but spiritually in your heart, it's like, I'm struggling with this, I can't do it.
Yeah, that's a great point. You know, I go back to, you know, where has this plant come from? Man didn't make this.
Right.
It came from God's earth. It's an organic plant that we've just found a way to do different things with it. And so at the end of the day, you know, research is showing us that medicinal marijuana or earnings or profits in the marijuana world are actually more likely to come from the medicinal side than the recreational side. And they feel that that world is significantly untapped right now because of the stigmas with marijuana, and quite honestly, you know, if I have friends and relatives that are medical professionals, and they're saying, well, what would you rather put in your body, something that's organic or something that's, you know, induced with a lot of chemicals? Like an opioid, right? Yeah, or some of the drugs that, you know, we take to deal with pain or to deal with some of the challenges. Now, I'm not a doctor, so I can't comment on which is better for you, but what I'm saying with the marijuana world, it's actually much bigger on the medicinal side than it is on the recreational side.
But you can understand that spiritual dilemma, right?
100%.
How about doing your own taxes? Should you hire a professional, or you should just go on QuickBooks or, you know, H&R Block, just go online and, hey, do it for free, right, and get it done. And besides, the CRA is going to, you know, make any changes, any flubs that you may have along the way anyway, right?
Yeah, I think
they'll correct it.
Yeah, I think for the most part, you know, if you're what I would call a slip return client, so meaning you work for one employer, you get a T4 at the end of the year, you contribute, you know, $2,000 a year to your RSP, and that's pretty much it.
You just sum me up.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go.
That's pretty easy, isn't it?
You could probably do it yourself.
Yeah.
If you don't want to, you can hire. You know, there are firms out there that'll do it for $50 to $75, and you're done. It's pretty simple. On the other hand, to your point, you know, if you do make a mistake, yeah, the government will probably let you know. But if there are monies owed to the government, they will charge you penalties and interest. So you want to be careful if you don't know what you're doing and don't want to, you know, dive into that world. It might be best to hire some of these tax preparation firms to assist you with that. If you're a client that owns a corporation or a client that has some more complicated matters, maybe a sole proprietorship, I would strongly encourage you to hire a professional to give you a hand with that as well.
The Alberta economy has been struggling since 2008, right? And the Canadian economy is slowly coming out of a recession as well, but it's not booming like in the United States right now. A lot of people are saying the smart money is to invest in the United States. What are you hearing?
Well, so a couple things. 2008, we saw a market correction. It was significant. It was one of the greatest we've ever seen. But people may not remember, but in 2008, oil was actually doing pretty good. So Alberta was somewhat isolated from that recessionary times. Yes, the market was off, but our local economy in Alberta was doing decent. As time went on, things started to cool, and yes, it really hit us in 2015, like we haven't seen in a generation. And so, and what happened in the U.S. was several years of buildup with the previous administration, essentially repairing some of the 08-07 damage, and the new government had come in. And one of the strategies that they'd implemented from their platform was they said, we will reduce taxes, and that money will be, you know, put back into the economy. And that's exactly what they did. Corporate taxation was reduced significantly.
Like small business, right?
Small and large.
Right.
Small and large. So when you're a major corporation that had to pay $100 million, $200 million, $1 billion in income tax, and now that's been shaved by several hundred million, that money stays in your local economy. In fact, that money goes to growth, because now major corporations are saying, let's reinvest in our company and let's grow even more. And so that's essentially what we're seeing. We saw a significant lift in the U.S. because of tax reductions. And there's other reasons too, but tax reduction was a huge part of that. And so now the question is, well, are you getting in too late? And so I go back to that original comment that I made, which is we can never control what governments in different countries will do and when they will do it. But what we do know is not necessarily we're not investing in the US government or the European government or the Canadian government for that matter, but we're investing in companies in those countries that ultimately will benefit from moves that governments are making.
Brexit may play a role as well, right? Especially if
100%.
you're investing in companies in either in the EU or in Great Britain, right?
Correct. So as a professional money manager, what they're looking at is saying, okay, if Brexit is for or against, who are the winners and who are maybe the losers? And so they're already looking, long term into the future. Where is the smart money going? And so again, I go back to that original question. If you're not a client that wants to pick and choose your own investments, or maybe you've tried that in the past, it just wasn't for you for whatever reason, the bulk of Canadians' wealth are in pensions or managed portfolio's. And ultimately, if you're plunking along at 6, 8, 10% a year, you're probably doing pretty good with not taking on the same levels of risk. And again, it becomes a risk-reward issue. And ultimately, if clients can earn 7, 8% with half the risk of the marketplace, that's pretty good.
That is pretty good, definitely.
Yeah.
Nathan Giesbrecht, Senior Financial Advisor with Investors Group from Red Deer. Thanks a lot for joining me in studio today.
Thank you.
On behalf of all of us here at BCN, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless, invest wisely, and have a great night.